Investment strategy episode number, what are we on now? Oh yeah, 5. How not to time a share. Just a quick note, all these videos should be taken in context of tools in your toolkit. You can adjust and combine them as you wish, you just need to be aware of the concept. They're not to be followed blindly, and you need to watch some further episodes to fill some gaps. I am planning a video on diversification and possibly one on treating shares like call options. But back to the topic at hand. I'm sorry to say, after all these years, I have not figured out a reliable method of timing investments. I'm all ears as to how to time the market. If you have a method that works, please write your strategies in the comments so I may review. If you are like me and can't successfully time a stock, what this video will show you is how to remove or reduce timing risk. So what is the timing problem we're trying to solve? Well, have you ever bought a stock or a share and then it's fallen the next day or even the same day, and it continues to fall before you make a profit later on? You kick yourself you didn't wait to buy. It's doubly painful because if you'd waited, you would not be in a loss and the share price wouldn't have to go up so much to make a profit. You might end up in the black later, but you go off your food for a little while. Or perhaps you see a stock you like and have been mulling it over. Suddenly it takes off. You have a dilemma, whether to eat the higher price or wait for it to land in the target area again. Most likely, it keeps going up and into the distance like a missed bus or train, or that balloon wafting in the sky you let go as a kid. Have you got over that yet? Never fear, we can get rid of all of this angst. Let's look at the entry point to your investment. I'm going to make an assumption. That is, you watched episode 2 and opened a spread betting account to scale down. Or you have a large enough fund that fixed fee transaction costs a very non-material proportion of your investment. So the trick here is to ask the question, why do you have to have a single purchase point? You don't put a lump of butter on your bread, you spread it, and you shouldn't lump your entry point to your investment. Take your investment and spread the entry point over a series of weeks or months. Even a half now, half later approach would improve some of the issues of the entry point. Averaging in simplifies your decision to invest, so you can think more about what to invest in rather than when to invest. You can dispense with looking at tea leaves or charts or consulting oracles and random chat boards in the wee hours of the morning. Right, I have a theoretical example. There are 3 scenarios. In this theoretical example, what happens is you invest 5 equal installments over 5 periods. It doesn't have to be 5 installments, it doesn't have to be over 5 periods, but for the illustration purposes, it's 5 installments over 5 periods. In scenario 1, each week the share price continues to decline. Say the share price falls 20% over the period. In scenario 2, each week the share price goes roughly sideways, and in scenario 3, each week the share price appreciates. The share price rises 20% over the period. So in scenario 1, spreading your entry point, you've now paid 10% less than what you would have if you invested all at once. Scenario 2, if you have a spread betting account, it's cost you nothing extra than buying it all at once. In fact, you may have got a longer dated bet on some of the other entry points. On scenario 3, you've now paid 10% more than you would have if you invested all at once. I find that when investing, my confidence in my investment goes up and down based on news, market reaction, or more introspection. So the advantages of scenario 1 and 2 are, firstly, during the investment period, you may feel less confident about the stock. Perhaps news came out and you change your mind. You don't have to complete all the investments, and therefore you have a smaller exposure than you would otherwise about a stock you're not confident in. Secondly, if you saw a better investment over the entry period, you can invest in the other opportunity instead with the unused funds. You're not fully committed and can pivot at any point. I find I treat each entry point as a separate investment, and it focuses my mind better on that investment. Thirdly, you start small, so if the trade goes against you or for you, you don't get emotional about it. Averaging in is perhaps a good method of buying shares when trying to catch a falling knife, when you think a share is already undervalued. In scenario 3 on our example, although you could have made more by not averaging in, you've still made money, and all but your last bet are up at the end of week 5. And if you stopped investing after 3 weeks because it was no longer cheap enough for you, you can save those funds and invest in the next opportunity. It's not the end of the world. So a real life example, an investment I made in Superdry. In 2012, I started with this averaging in strategy with my first stock, Supergroup. I knew the stock was undervalued, but didn't know when to buy. I wanted to buy 5 units though. Because the fee was a percentage of the investment cost and not a fixed cost, it cost me nothing extra to spread out the purchases. So I bought at the first price of $3.15, knowing it was undervalued. The fall to $2.69 sent me back a bit, but it was a chance to average down, and I wanted to follow through with the strategy. Buying once a month with more confidence, I was at profit at £2.92. By the 4th instalment, financial results came back and they're positive, so topped up. Even at period 5, it still seemed undervalued, so I completed my investment at the higher price. Now you could argue, if I just bought 5 units at the beginning, I would have been better off. And I would have in this case, 11% better off. However, it's not the full story. I didn't know how to time the exit just as much as the entry. All I knew was a price where it wasn't crazily undervalued anymore. So I averaged out 7 months later. If I was exiting all at once, I probably would have waited for a higher than £7 price. But I wanted some risk off the table and had already doubled my first instalment, so the first sale was at £6.17. For the second sale, I took advantage to sell at a high price when it was over £7, and on the third sale, I got out of the position entirely and locked in my profits as I doubled my money and it had dropped below £7. This time, it was the reverse of the entry point strategy. I was 11% better off averaging out. So even though the share price continued to go up £17 in a short time span, there was no regret. My strategy wasn't buy and hold, it was double, cut and run, and it was done in under a year. There were other opportunities that proved just as lucrative. Supergroup could have gone either way, and it went in my favour. Due to the averaging, I didn't feel any buyer's or seller's remorse at any time, and I still doubled my money. I felt much more in control of the process than all-in approach. In summary, averaging in and out of your shares takes the complexity out of when to buy your stock, letting you focus on the share itself. Averaging in and out removes some of the negative emotions, and when you average in and out, you treat each transaction like a separate investment, and this reviewing and re-reviewing makes your investment case stronger. This technique is especially good when you're trying to catch a falling knife, as you're using protective gloves in doing so. There may be a better way to time, but it requires a lot of effort and learning, and therefore would have to prove its accuracy and worth. Housekeeping: the author will not be held liable for any errors of content on this video whatsoever. You're responsible for your own verification of facts. This video is only intended to educate and not be taken as investment advice. I'm not a qualified financial advisor. Please do your own research, consult your own financial advisor. Good luck.